So basically all I have to do is talk.
Yeah. And then the camera's right there sticking out of the
Okay.
ceiling. You have from about, let's say about like right here to right here for your stage. So if you want to
Oh,
walk back
okay.
and forth,
Okay.
you can use it from here.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't really, unless we project that, need to. I mean, you can't really see it though.
Yeah, they can't see it from the screen either, and I wouldn't be able to screen
Okay.
share it.
All right. So would I stand here or
Yeah, you
would
can
I?
stand here, yeah. Or you can,
chair?
you can sit in a chair if you'd like.
Or use the
anything you want.
podium? Or
Yeah.
maybe I'll just do that. I'll just get my nose up.
Like if you want to do the podium, I got.
Yeah, I brought my computer if anybody here just to show them something fun, but I won't do it on the Zoom call.
Yeah, like right here would be good.
Okay. And is that what they're gonna see right there?
Yes, yep. So this is what they'll see. This is the Zoom control keyboard.
The one is us.
Yeah.
Okay. This is unmuted, everybody, too. You know.
I'll come back and check.
Oh,
on you in a
Robin
few
Murray's,
minutes.
somebody just, was that you? Robin
Robin. So Robin's on. She's from the Liquid Range office.
Oh, good. Oh, good, okay,
So you'll have some people to talk to that.
okay. And so are they, yes, yeah,
Yes, they can see us now. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
actually, they face the camera here.
do they see?
Hi, Marlene. Hi, Robin.
Hello.
How do we hear them? We're working on it, we'll be right with you,
Okay.
Robin says hi. So some of them will go into the chat box here.
okay? Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's 101, so you can get started.
Oh, how do I, oh, I won't hear them.
But you should be able to. Sometimes the audio cuts in and out. So if they unmute themselves, which might be, but I think we're having some issues with our hearing part.
Of us here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, what does that mean?
that means. Oh, Marlene's muted. That means so.
Okay, somebody's.
Because we're.
But Robin's not.
Robin is not.
Hey, Robin, can you hear me? Looks like you're not muted. I just want to see if we can hear anybody say anything.
There was an issue with this computer in the previous class, so it's possible that it doesn't have any failure.
Oh,
So,
she's
yeah,
muted.
And then if you want to see what they're in the chat box, you can use the mouse to go there and click the chat. That'll pop up. Oh, it says my speaker from my laptop doesn't seem to work for some reason.
Okay.
I was trying. You're good, Robin. Thank you.
Well, I guess it's 1:05, so we should get started. Hi, Marlene and Robin. My name is Bev. I'm with Integrity Title Services in the law office of Brad Moyer. And you probably know we've got an office in Lakewood Ranch, and we have an office in Venice. We're in the Jacaranda Office Park. Brad Moyer is the real estate attorney that owns Integrity Title. And just a brief summary, we have 5 closers, and we've got processors that work in the office, and some of them work at home. With this COVID, everything is different now. And we do our closings as securely as we can. We wipe down the table in between everybody. People will come into the office. We've got like a plexiglass screen in between us and them. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable coming in, and we'll meet them at their car. Sandra is licensed for the RON, that's remote online notarization. And actually we had somebody last week bring a table and card shares, and they were sitting in our parking lot. We're like, all right, whatever makes everybody comfortable. So we're going to talk about title tips and the nitty-gritty of title, and just everyday things that help us make life easier for all of us. So first of all, do you remember what TRID is? Looking to see if you guys have any comments. A lot of times people forget that word TRID. Well, remember in October of 2015, the government decided that we needed a new Sullivan statement. So now they call it a CD. It's a closing disclosure rather than the HUD-1. And what it is, it stands for TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule. And again, it was effective October 3rd of 2015. And that's where buyers need to be disclosed their preliminary fees 3 days before closing, or it can delay the closing. So I just wanted to just brush up on that, because now that 5 years have gone by, people forget what TRID means. Cyber fraud, that's our biggest concern now, along with COVID, that we keep our customers safe and the funds safe. Phishing is a big thing. You know, we want to make sure that the wiring instructions that the buyers have to send us money came from us. So you don't want to be sending the buyers wiring instructions. Let us do that. We'll send it to them. We'll confirm the instructions before anybody releases any funds. And you'd be surprised how much money comes into our account, and we have no idea where it came from, what contract that it's for, and then a couple of days later we'll get the contract. So we just want to communicate really well. Prior to closing, we'll confirm with the buyers again what those wiring instructions are, so that the funds truly go to us. Sellers, we never want you to give us their wiring instructions. We don't want them to email them to us. We'll either get them directly at the closing table or in a FedEx package that we'll confirm with them before we release any funds. Wiring instructions for the seller cannot change. If they give us their wiring instructions and then we get an email the day of the closing saying, oh, I decided I want to change my wiring instructions to somewhere else, we can't do that. That's especially if it's going to like a business, LLC, that's a huge risk of fraud. If a person comes in and sees us in person, that would be the only time that we could change the instructions, or if they themselves can prove to us that it's them that wants these instructions changed. One of the big things is when you get a new contract, please be sure to put the property address in the subject line. A lot of times I'll get a message, new contract, and it doesn't have any property address or anything. That's how I track my emails. Any title company that you use, we use either the buyer's name along with the property address, and because we kind of prioritize our emails. Those contracts are number one. We want to get the new contracts with the buyer and the seller in contact with us right away. So those will be our priority. So make sure that there is a property address in there. What is title insurance? A lot of times somebody will say, oh, I don't want title insurance. If you're doing your job, why would I need title insurance? Well, my favorite story about title insurance is one day our phone rang at the office, and there was a lady who purchased a property, and the police were at her door, and they wanted to know why was she in this house. Well, it was a fraudulent deed. The woman saw a sign on the side of the road. It was a great deal. It was cash, too good to be true. She didn't have a real estate agent. She didn't have a title agent. She paid cash to these sellers. And what it was is somebody actually got the keys or access into the house, put an ad for the house, had a fraudulent deed. The woman and her kids moved in. The people came down from up north, and her money was gone. We couldn't help her because she didn't have title insurance. I had another situation. We actually have a case going right now. We had the perfect closing. We had a seller in Nokomis. we had a buyer with a lender, picture perfect seller. He was very responsive. He didn't have a mortgage. Everything appeared to be clear. And a year after the closing, the buyer got a notice in the mail from a bank that he had a business that had a loan that he was in default on. Well, our title commitment, sometimes when it's homestead property, judgments don't attach to the property. Well, the seller lied. He said it was his homestead property, but the bank is fighting it, saying that it's not his homestead property. So they believe that this judgment should attach to this property. So this has been going on over a year now. It's a title claim. We reassure the buyer, thank goodness they have a owner's title policy because they're protected. That's what it's for. So those are things that you would never expect that could come up, after the closing, that you want to make sure that the buyers are protected for. Now back to TRID, one of the things I don't agree with TRID is when they did the new closing disclosure, it says title insurance is optional on the owner's policy. It's like, really? We have to at minimum have a lender policy. The only time that I've not had an owner's title policy is if we had some kids buying from their mom and dad. They were relatives. If they, for some reason, do not get the owner's title policy, but they do have a lender policy, we have them sign a hold harmless agreement that holds the agents, Integrity Title Services, and our underwriters harmless from anything that might come up in the future, that they understand what they're doing. Because title insurance, it's simultaneous. That means it's discounted when you get a lender policy and an owner's policy together. And I have some rate cards for you that I want to get to you. I'll get your email addresses and send them to you. Title insurance is the same anywhere that you go in the state of Florida. It's based on the selling price of the property. It's about $525 per 100,000. So I've got a little card that you can use for any of your closings. Our closing fees are on that card. We charge $295 if it's a cash transaction, and we charge $495 if there's a loan involved. We only charge an extra $200. The title insurance is based on the selling price of the property. So let's say you have a $200,000 property. The title insurance on that would be about $1,500. The lender policy is discounted. It would be $250. And then any endorsements that the lender requires, the buyer pays as well. So I just keep looking to see if you've got any questions. When you write your contracts, be creative with writing the contracts and clarify anything in the additional terms. One of the biggest arguments that I see is if a seller is choosing the title agent and they're paying title, and now they're also going to give, say, a $6,000 closing cost credit. That means that they're going to pay the title insurance, they're going to pay the search fee, which we charge $85, the municipal lien search, and they're going to pay the $6,000. Now, if you didn't intend it to be that way, put in the additional terms that it's to include, the $6,000 is to include the owner's policy and charges, because a lot of times they just assume. And when you've got a title company, they represent the contract. We can't be biased. We're a neutral party. Whatever the contract says is what we need to follow. We can't just kind of say, well, I think it means this. It should be very clear in the contract. I see some agents say that the seller is going to choose the title, but the buyer is going to pay. And a lot of times they don't know who to use, so a lot of times they will agree to that. And it is customary, typically in Sarasota and Charlotte County anyway, the buyers typically pay for their own title charges. When we get a contract, what I really appreciate is a copy of your broker synopsis, or sometimes we call it the MLS sheet. I'm a licensed title agent. I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't have access to some of the things that you have access to. And that broker synopsis will tell us commissions. It'll tell us information about the homeowners association. It'll give us a lot of information on there. Now, another thing that all real estate agents should be able to do is be familiar with the property appraiser's website, because it gives us a lot of really good information. First of all, it's just really easy. If you just go to the property appraisers and you search the property, look at the property, look at the sellers. Hopefully that seller who's in the property appraiser is our seller that we've got in the contract. And if it's not, why? Did somebody pass away? Was it just recently sold? These are all things that are really important that we need to know. And if somebody is deceased, we don't just automatically know that. A lot of times people think the funeral homes will record the death certificate in the public records. They don't. That needs to be recorded in the public records. And it's not, we can do that at closing. That's one of our requirements. We've had contracts where it's a husband and wife selling a property and one of them passes away before closing. If their title vesting was husband and wife or tenants by the entireties, that's no issue at all. It won't go to probate. But if there was, say, a single person that was on title, they pass away, the estate is going to need probate. And that brings me to my next thing, power of attorney documents. A lot of times we'll have a relative who has power of attorney, and they say, well, I have power of attorney for this person. Well, if they passed away, that power of attorney is no longer any good. It's only good as long as they're alive. If somebody wants to use a power of attorney, that's okay. We need to have a copy of the power of attorney, and we need to know why we're using the power of attorney. Lately, one of the big reasons for using the power of attorney is maybe mom and dad are in a nursing home with COVID. They can't have any visitors.
All of a sudden, we can't hear you.
But
We can't hear you.
a copy of it. We need to have it approved by the underwriters because it is the #1 cause of title claims. Mom and dad could be in a nursing home. They could be fully with it. Maybe they're not aware that their property was being sold, and the property is sold, and they're like, well, I didn't authorize that, and that's a title claim. So we need to make sure that we have the power of attorney. It's approved by the underwriters. We need to record the original along with an affidavit that the person that it's for is still alive and it hasn't been revoked. Foreign sellers. If you have a seller that's foreign, it's really important that we know that. And FERPTA it's really difficult to understand. I think it's one of the craziest laws that we have. The whole intention of FERPTA is so it's an advanced tax so that the foreign person has to report the sale of the property and pay any capital gains just like the rest of us do. So a foreign person is required to, first of all, get an ITIN. If they don't have a social security number or a green card, the foreign taxpayer ID number is called an ITIN. And they need to have that. If they don't have it by closing, we have to at least know that it's applied for. And I'm sure we might have some questions on FERPTA because it's the decision if we're going to withhold any tax at closing is the buyer's decision. So if the buyer is going to occupy the property for 50% of the time that it's in use,
can you hear me?
The selling price is $300,000 or less, and the buyer intends to live in this property for the next 2 years, the buyer can sign a FERPTA affidavit, and what it is, it's a waiver of collecting any tax at closing. It's not a waiver of having to pay tax, period. And I just had a closing this week where we were going round and round. The agent told the seller that they are exempt from having to pay income tax. Well, that's tax evasion. So we just have to be really careful as to what we advise. I do encourage the buyers to sign that FERC affidavit if the seller does have an ITIN and they've been paying taxes all along. Maybe it was a rental property and they've been filing tax returns every year. I don't see a risk in that. They know what to do. But if the seller doesn't have an ITIN, has no intention of paying any kind of income tax, that's tax evasion. So the seller can also apply for what's called a withholding certificate, and I've got certain accountants that I like to use. Valerie Wagner in Englewood is one of them. She'll help them get an ITIN, and she'll also help them file their tax return at the end of the year. But a withholding certificate, the certified accountant would send in a request to the IRS before our closing date, and the IRS responds, and it's usually within 90 days, as to if we need to withhold and how much we need to withhold. That way we don't have to withhold the whole 15% at closing. But that's a whole different training class. I just wanted to touch lightly on it because it's important to know what it is. And if you have any questions, call your broker, call your title agent. And I'll give you our phone number here. My name is Bev Clanty, Integrity Title Services. And the phone number at the Venice office is 941-445-4046. And at the Lakewood Ranch office, it's 941-552. Oh, I knew I was going to do that. I'll email it to you. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to guess what it was. Any of the closers? I'm Bev. It's Bev at integrity-title.com. We have Karen at integrity-title.com. Jane at integrity-title.com. Those are at Venice. At Lakewood Ranch, we have Sandra at integrity-title.com. Paula at integrity-title.com. And the attorney Brad is B. Moyer at integrity-title.com. So please feel free to call us with any questions that you might have. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is non-ad valorem taxes. People from up north have no idea what this is. So when on the property taxes, there's ad valorem taxes, and that means that it's based on the value of the property. It's a Latin word. Non-ad valorem means it's not based on the value. And an example of the non-ad valorem assessments or taxes are the fire department, sanitation, or solid waste is garbage pickup, road maintenance. If there's a community development fees may also be in with the non-ad valorem taxes. And what's really weird about Florida is the ad valorem, based on the value, is paid at the end of the year. Like right now, the taxes are paid from January 1st through December 31st of 2019. The non-ad valorem, like the garbage pickup, the county wants that money in advance. So those taxes are paid from October 1st through September 30th of 2020. So on the settlement statement, there's going to be two different prorations. And people from up north are like, what is this? And people who are sellers, a lot of times think they've already paid their taxes and they should be getting a credit at closing. Well, we all know the 2020 taxes they're not even out yet. They won't be out until November. So they do seem to catch on pretty quick though, but we just need to be familiar with it. And also, hi there, we're doing a Zoom. I you want to stay?
I'll catch up.
Well, it's just Title 101.
Oh.
Yeah, come on, wait. We have Robin and Marlene.
Hey,
Here's Katie.
Integrity Title is the best title agency ever. They will never let you down, and they go above and beyond. I use them anytime my buyer or seller is paying title.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you too. All right. What were we talking about? Sorry to interrupt. That's all right. Oh, we were talking about non-ad valorem taxes. Okay, another thing with your contracts. When you write your contracts, and you've got a closing date on there, and it's getting pretty close to our closing date, and we find out, yeah, the lenders are really backed up right now. And I've had a lot of delays in closing because of lenders. Their interest rates are awesome. There's refis, they're having a real hard time sometimes, making the deadline. So if we know that that the lender's not going to make it, we need to have an extension to the contract, even if it's just 1 day. And there is provisions in the contract with TRID that does give us an extension, and it's not automatic. It's a lot of times people think it is automatic. To cover your butt, you should really have an extension to the contract. And you can say that the reason is for the lender. But yeah, we don't want to risk our buyers losing their earnest money deposits. The market's really hot right now, and I've had some sellers have backup offers, and they may not want the buyer that they have. They want to go for a higher offer. So make sure we stay within our contract. Okay, we talked about deceased sellers. Let's talk about funds for closing. Now, all title companies are going to require the funds for closing to be wired because wires are immediately available. Integrity Title Services, for the earnest money deposit, we do accept personal checks because it has plenty of time to clear. The check would be payable to Integrity Title Services. They can bring it to our office. Our Venice office is in the Jacaranda Office Park, which is over by Home Depot. And we do have a mail slot in our door now too. So if they drop it off after hours, they can just put it in the mail slot. But you want to get that check out of your hands as quick as you can. You can drop it off, directly to us, put it in the mail slot, overnight it to us, or we can get wiring instructions over to the buyer to wire. But a lot of times it builds trust with the buyer in the beginning if they're here locally and they write a personal check for the deposit. And heads up, we do deposit those. We have to deposit those within 24 hours of receiving those. So, I've had seller or buyers say, well, I thought you were going to hold that and that we were going to, get that back at closing. It's always a credit on the closing statement. We also, Integrity Title Services, make some exceptions. Let's just say you've got a VA buyer and he only needs to bring $500 to closing. We can make an exception. Under $500, we will allow a personal check. Under $10,000, we will allow a cashier's check. But those are just Integrity Title's rules that the attorney has approved for us, as well as our underwriters. And our underwriters that we use Old Republic, National Title, and we also use North American. They're the ones that search the public records and give us our requirements for closing. They're the ones that generate what's called a title commitment, and it's a commitment to issue the owner's title policy. So the title commitment is a search of the public records. It's going to tell us if there are mortgages, judgments, and this is quite common. If you have somebody with a popular name, there might be a judgment out there of, say, John Smith in Sarasota County. Instead of getting the seller alarmed over that, we do contact them and we just want to make sure it's not him, and he signs an affidavit at closing. It is not the same person as that other John Smith with a $100,000 tax lien out there. So, we have several ways of clearing title. A municipal lien search is different. A municipal lien search is the municipality. That is going to tell us if there's any code violations, if there are open permits, taxes are current, and the water bill. So it won't tell us, though, if there was work that was done without a permit. So you need to be with the buyers and sellers. If there's a shed on the property, if there's a room, there's no garage anymore, and the room was converted, the garage was converted into a room, you want to make sure that there was a permit opened. Now, let's just say there wasn't. And sometimes we see this. Okay, first of all, a lender is never going to go for it. But if you have a cash transaction, the buyer could purchase subject to that work done without a permit. It has to be disclosed to them, though. It should first of all be disclosed on the seller's disclosure. It should be disclosed to the title agent, and we will prepare a hold harmless agreement at closing. It's going to be an exception on their policy. The home inspectors are usually pretty good with, picking up on work done after the house was built. And they've been great assistance with checking to see if there's been a permit for the work that was done. The title agent never sees the property. I had somebody who was upset about a shed. And it's like, well, I've never seen your shed. But our survey will disclose where the shed is, but it doesn't say anything about what it looks like or how tall it is. Surveys are required if there's a lender. They're not required if it's a condo. And the key to that is if a legal description starts with the word lot, we need a survey. If it starts with the word unit, we do not. Now, we're good with using the seller's survey as long as there's been no changes. And then Integrity Title doesn't have an age limit on there. If it's 10 years old, we're still okay to use that. But if it gets like really old and, we'll probably need an update. We want to make sure there aren't any new fences, any new pools, any new additions to the property. Now, I had one close last week, and on the survey, it showed 2 sheds, and the sheds were in the easement. So those sheds were there for a long, long time. The seller knew the sheds were there, but they had no idea that they were in the easement. So we had to bring that to the attention to the buyer. And so the first question is how big is the shed? Well, these are very small. They were 8 by 10 sheds, and they could be moved. They weren't even on concrete slabs. The buyer was fine with it. We still had him sign a hold harmless because when the day comes that he sells the property, those sheds may still be there and they never go away. Same with open permits, code violations. If they are not taken care of at closing, they're still going to be there when the buyer sells that property someday. And we call those hot potato items. If they're not taken care of at closing, they become the buyer's responsibility. And again, we have them sign a hold harmless, holding Integrity Title harmless, Old Republic, and the agents harmless, because they're going to forget. You can bet. They're going to say, oh, I'm selling my property, and there's an open permit on the property. Well, all of our documents are stored in the cloud. We can pull up that file and show them their hold harmless that they signed at closing, protecting all of us. The first person they're going to call is you, and you're going to call me, and we're going to, check the file. But that's another reason why you have title insurance as well, because we do the municipal lien search. The municipal lien search gets a letter from the county telling us if there's any issues with the property. If something happens later down the road, we did have this happen once where the municipality missed something. They were actually, their E&O insurance covered that for the buyer. Okay, and then again, just to confirm, know that the title commitment is the title search of the public records. The municipal lien search is a search of the municipality. Some communities have special assessments. Now, in your contract, there is a section to check if the seller is going to pay them off any assessments at closing, or if the buyer is going to assume them at closing. That's a real important box to check. There are some municipalities in Englewood where water has come through, water service, Englewood Water District. There's some areas in Nokomis where they just put water through, and when it's expensive. So it might be a $10,000 lien on the property. And depending on the municipality, sometimes they don't have to be paid off at closing, unless you check that box that says that the seller is going to pay it off at closing. But if it says that the seller will pay up to closing and the buyer will assume after closing, that will just stay in the tax bill then, but the buyer has to know about it. Disclosing is really important. Communication is so important. We will send you the title work when it comes in so that you can review it and just have the assurance that everything is good. Then we're going to send you, as soon as I do a CD for the lender, I send the agents. And it's not complete, I let them know it's a prelim, but your commission is on there. The earnest money deposit is on there. And they send it to you before I'll send it to the buyer and the seller. Because we look real silly if there was an addendum to the contract, maybe the price lowered or raised, or there's an additional deposit, and if we didn't have it. So please, first of all, look at the selling price, look at your commission, and if you have a broker fee or some kind of an admin fee, make sure that that's on there. If there was a home warranty that was decided after the contract, make sure that we've got that as well. And then after you look at it, then we can share it with the buyer and the seller. So please let your title agent know. Please review those settlement statements, just for the basics, and then let us know if there's any issues, and we'll promptly correct those. Know that that contract that you're writing is a legally binding contract. And Brad Moyer tells me all the time to be really careful not to practice law. You can give somebody your opinion, but you can't tell them, you can't give them legal advice. Neither can I. I'm a title agent, and being a title agent means that I can prepare documents subsequent to title insurance. So I can prepare deeds, I can prepare all the documents for closing, I can clear all the requirements for closing. But when it comes to legal advice, that's when we need the attorney to advise. And that's why I'm so happy to work for Integrity Title, which is a title company and a law office all in one. Another benefit of the law office is we can do things like quitclaim deeds, where if you're just a title company and it's not subsequent to title insurance, a title agent isn't allowed to do that. The attorney is. We can negotiate short sales because we have an attorney. A lot of the bank-owned properties, it's really smart to have attorney review on those, because the contract that you use to submit your offer on a bank-owned property is going to come back with a completely different contract that is going to override that first contract that you had signed. So Brad Moyer is always glad to review those, for you if you've got any questions. Because, wow, it's like a 10-page contract, sometimes even longer. And you just want to make sure you didn't miss something and that your buyer's not mad at you when it comes time for closing. So I just went through my hour in 35 minutes. Do you guys have any questions? I see you're still muted, and I don't know if I can hear you. Let me see, I think there was a chat. Let me see if I can figure this out. Marlene, do you want to talk more about foreign buyers?
Yeah, because I kind of missed it. You were fading.
Foreign buyers, it doesn't matter. I heard you say, talk louder. If you have a foreign buyer, it does not matter at all. They're treated the same as a U.S. citizen. It makes no difference when they buy. If it's a cash transaction, we can do it all electronically. Electronic documents are acceptable for closing. I just stress to them to confirm the wiring instructions. It seems like these fraudsters for fraud pick on foreign foreign buyers. A couple examples I had back to the fraud thing with foreign people. I had a buyer who did not speak English, and so he only spoke to his agent. And I was actually out on vacation, never had any contact with the buyer. It was weeks before closing, and there was some phishing going on between the agent and the buyer got some email saying that he needed to transfer funds now. Well, it was 3 weeks before closing. I never sent him wiring instructions. We weren't that far yet. But he called his agent and said, do I need to wire funds now? And they said, whoever was on the other end of the email persuaded this buyer to send funds for closing. Now, thank goodness, it was $10,000, he had a lender, but I didn't find out about that until 3 weeks after he did it. And it was too late. He lost his $10,000. I had a Canadian buyer who was an investor, and he should know better. I talked to him several times on the phone. He wired me the earnest money deposit. We confirmed it. Everything was the same. And then he got some email. It wasn't even from me. He thought it was somebody maybe from my office, but said we were so busy that we had to change we had to add an additional escrow account. Please send your funds here. And the exchange rate happened to be good that day, and he did it. He sent $275,000 to someplace in Miami. Well, the good thing is, there was a happy ending to this. The agent was right on it, and she called me and said, he said he sent money today, and I said, I never talked to him, I had never emailed him. And I called him right away, and he goes, yeah, did you get the money? And it's like, no, you need to go to your bank now. And he said, well, it's 10 to 5, and it's like, you need to go back because you were just fished. So anyway, he did go back. It took the 5 longest days that I've ever felt in my life, but they were able to retrieve back the funds. And it was only because the funds went from his bank to the intermediary bank. They stopped them there before they went off to who knows where. So back to I got off track on the foreign buyer thing. But we just want to protect everybody, but especially these hackers and fishers seem to prey on foreign buyers and sometimes sellers. So, any other questions? I'm going to get your email addresses, and I'm going to send you our rate sheet. I'm going to send you my business card, and I'm going to send you my just my sheet on the title tips and the nitty gritty of title. And I thank you for joining us. And please feel free to reach out to anybody at Integrity Title Services to help with your transactions.
Can you hear me?
Questions. Even if we're not the title agent, we'd be glad to help. So, thank
Can
you. And
can
I
you
hope to
hear-
see you soon.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, and I see Robin's comment. It's always best to call and verify. Always. Thank you. So many scams is right. So, all right. Thank you and stay safe. Bye now.
I was trying to talk. Can you hear me?